Bam! What's going on, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of the morning show. I've been on a what is it like a 3 week hiatus, a 3 week break, and yeah, I'm very sorry about all the time off. Um, we had some interesting things happen here at home. Um, but yeah, I took 2 weeks off to celebrate Independence Day here in Peru. Independence in Peru is on the 28th of July, so we took that week off because normally we have a lot of things planned. But something interesting happened halfway through our vacation of sorts. My wife fractured her ankle, and uh, I've been having to deal with that these last few days, and so she's going to be out of work for a couple of months, and so I've been here at home trying to get a good grip on things, and so yeah, so that's delayed a little bit. This delayed a little bit with commissions and with the show, so I apologize. But thank you nevertheless for your patience. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for tuning in. For all the people that are checking me out live, and for the people that are checking this out on the replay, this is the Ominus Morning Show, and my name is Elliot Rodriguez. And today I have a very special guest. Uh, this person, well, you've seen it in the thumbnail, but this person is my Twitter brother, and so we go way back. We go way back, and yeah, I've worked with him before, and it's a pleasure to have him on the show and to be able to talk about his newest and his latest project, and I'm excited to jump into that because I've been I'll tell you guys about it later in the show, but yeah, I'm excited to have my boy Neffarious on. He is from Global Frequency Studios, which they are the creators of the comic Mavericks. If you haven't heard, Mavericks is a really cool indie IP which features mechs, and he's got a lot of great things planned for that because it's the artwork that I've seen for the upcoming books, magnificent. So, anyways, just really quickly, I want to say hello to people in the chat. My guest is in the chat. Glad to see that he's in the chat. What's up, Neff? Tank Fair, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Yeah. And the rest of you magnificent bastards. What's going on? Frequency Girl, how you doing? I hope you're okay. I hope you're recovering. I heard that you were a little bit under the weather from, I don't know from what, but I think after you came back from Japan, I believe you guys got sick. But anyways, I hope you're doing better. And without any further ado, I'm going to bring on my guest, and I would like for you to please give a big round of applause to Neffarious. Bam.
Hey, what's up, nigga? How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It is wonderful to be up and about and on the morning show. I am pumped. I just had like my second cup of coffee. I'm raring to go.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And yeah, I'd like to start off if you could give us an update on Frequency Girl. Is she doing okay? She's doing better now?
She's doing okay. So what happened? We came back from Japan and we launched Judex that weekend. So we came back on Wednesday and we launched on Friday. So we had just Thursday to put the campaign together and get it all done and launch on Friday. And then the next week, I think it was the next week, maybe the week after, we went to Terrificon. And we had a great convention. Everyone was super psyched to see us. We sold a whole bunch of Mavericks comics. We had the Judex teaser there. People were like really excited to see it. But we both caught COVID at the convention, and that just knocked us on our ass for like a week. It wasn't like awful, horrible, terrible, we're gonna die or anything, but it was not pleasant. We got a wicked sore throat. And when I mean wicked, I mean like, this is probably the worst sore throat I've ever had. I couldn't talk. I lost my voice entirely. There wasn't like a lot of congestion in the chest, but there was like in the sinuses, and we were in bed, we were sleeping. It was not a good time. I caught it first. I developed symptoms first by like a day.
Man.
So luckily, Frequency Girl had just enough time to make a giant vat of chicken soup to nurse me back to health. But then she got sick, so we were double timing that chicken soup. You know how it is, right?
Man.
That Jewish
Yeah,
penicillin.
definitely.
And we got better. It took us a week, and we were out of bed. But like, we were under quarantine for 10 days, so we couldn't like go anywhere or anything. And then after the 10 days, I still have a little bit of a cough, which is like upper respiratory, but it's not too bad. It's just annoying, like it happens in the mornings and in the evenings. I have little coughing fits, and they're not painful or anything. It's irritating. I hope I get over it soon. But we have a convention this weekend, so we're going to see if I get COVID again. Let's find out.
Let's hope not, man. No. Let's hope not. And but yeah, glad to hear that you're doing better. I had no idea that COVID is still out there lingering like that. Man, that sucks.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like the flu, or like a bad cold. It's getting swapped around. I heard that a lot of people who went to Florida, to the convention down in Florida, Tampa, Rini and PTP and Phil and Bancroft and Narwhal and Camel Moon and just all the cool kids that we were going to go hang out with, but Terrificon was the same weekend, and we had a corner table in Artist Alley right at like the main entrance. So like we had the incredible traffic. I could not pass that up to go down to Tampa, but I heard a lot of people at Tampa got the ick too, and it turns out that the ick was COVID. So, it's weird. You take the little test, you get the strip back, and you're like, nah, I don't have COVID. Like everyone said that shit kills you. This can't be it. But yeah, it's COVID. It's a nasty little bug. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But it's certainly something to deal with. It was like, did you ever get strep throat?
Not that I can remember.
So that's pretty common for kids. That and mono are pretty common for kids in like high school. Strep throat goes around. It's a really bad sore throat, and you get like speckles in the back of your throat. It's nasty. You have to be on I think you have to be on antibiotics for that. But COVID's a virus, so they can't give you antibiotics. But it kind of felt like strep. Strep will keep you out of school for a couple days. So that's what it was like. Certainly kept us out of school for a couple days.
Yeah, I had suspicions last year that I might have got the Rona, but I never actually got it confirmed. But I suspect, but I don't know. I've never had any official confirmation on that. But yeah, I mean, if I did, then it must have. Then I'm one of those cases that had no symptoms attached, because I was perfectly fine. But there was like a week or so there that I was exposed to someone who had it, and so I'm assuming there's that possibility. So I don't know if I did or not. But
my brother-in-law got COVID, had no idea, completely asymptomatic. He found out when they had to do one of those like, we need to swab you in order to let you enter this building kind of deals. And they swabbed him. They were like, you have COVID. And he's like, what? He's like, I'm fine. Like, there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with no fever, no temperature, no nothing, but positive. And then he went and got a follow-up to double check, because sometimes those tests are wrong. And he had COVID for real. And he was fine. And then on the other side of that family, like God rest his soul, but we had a relative who just he died. Like it's messed up, man. Like I don't know what's going on with that virus, but people are starting to. Yeah, people are built different, and people are starting to come out the woodwork and get back to their lives as normal, and that means that COVID's going to go around. But it's just something we deal with, right?
Yeah, definitely. I had somebody also in my university class that got it, and we found out that he passed away also from it. It was really sad. I remember sharing class time with him and doing projects and stuff with him, and then he got snuffed out.
It's just as surprising, right? Like it comes out of nowhere. You're like, damn, what happened there?
Yeah. Frequency Girl says she's doing good. I got
she's
Jay.
alive.
What's going on, Jay? What's up, Soul Studios? What's up, man? Thank you very much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. What's up, brother? And Yeah, Frequency Girl says, "My throat was so swollen I couldn't eat solid food. I had to get liquid Tylenol because, oh man, that sucks. That sounds harsh." And
Yeah, it
Tank
was.
says,
She did not have a
"Happy
good time.
belated." Yeah, man, but I'm glad she's doing better though. Glad she's doing a whole lot better now. And yeah, and Tank says, "Happy belated Independence Day." Thank you very much, man. We are now for the last 200 years, I think 201 years, we have been a sovereign nation, and so it's always great to celebrate that. And yeah, so I always thought I've always wanted to have you on the show and talk to you about the creative process behind Mavericks, and I thought that if I ever had you on a show, it would be for Mavericks 2. But surprisingly, you come out with another project, and I'm just as glad to be able to have you on for that. And the project that uh, that we have in question is Judex, and
Judex, yeah.
I have to admit that I had no idea what Judex was, but I've read about it, and it's a really interesting story. From what I understand, it's like it's is a French hero from I don't want to generalize it, but it's very similar to like a Zorro type character, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
unless
actually
you
a
have
really
spells.
good. That's a really good illusion because Zorro kind of embodies both sides of what we were going with for the character. Because Zorro
Yeah,
fights for independence and like that. So what Odin did, Judex is originally from a 1916 black and white silent film that has nothing to do with World War II. It's originally a story about a young man whose father is ruined by a pernicious banker, and so the kid dresses up in this sort of shadow regalia to exact his revenge upon the banker. And Judex means judge in French.
yeah,
And it was a serialized movie, and then it had like another movie in the 60s that came back, and he wore a weird chicken head, so everyone like thinks of
yeah,
the
yeah.
weird chicken head.
Yeah,
And so
it's
it
funny. I
hit
saw it on
like,
YouTube.
yeah, yeah, it is.
It's on YouTube.
And
I
then
saw that earlier today.
he appeared in the Masks series at DC, where they had all of the old pulpy Silver Age heroes that got together and formed a super team. So it was the Spider and Miss Black Fury and Judex and Black. I think actually Black Terror was in it too. And there's a bunch of characters that just came together and formed one of those like pulpy super teams. But that didn't, that had its run and that was over. But what Odin did, because Odin wrote the story for this and he designed the character for this and he kind of
Yeah,
came up with the setting and general world for this, is he took this character from 1916 and reimagined him during World War II. And it was kind of, I guess, like serendipitous because during World War II, when the Nazis invaded France, right,
yeah,
and they stormed and occupied Paris, the Parisians couldn't put out their own newspapers. They had to publish what the Germans told them to publish, right? It was like
yeah,
occupied propaganda. But what they were able to do was publish the comic strips in the back of, the newspaper, or however they were publishing the comic strips. I would imagine they would be in the periodicals because that's how we were doing it in the States, right? And so what they did was, since they were not making their own, they took shadow comic strips from the US and they released them under the name Judex in France. So Judex was kind of like he had inspired the Shadow, and then he like donned the guise of the Shadow in France, and it was kind of funny because there is this crossover between the two characters, and as one kind of like assumes the other's identity. But anyways, so what Odin did was he took this character and he made him kind of the cultural defender of France during Nazi occupation. And what he means by that is when the Nazis invaded, a lot of the aristocracy fled France. a lot of the people, they were subjugated, and then still others joined with the Nazis. They were French police, and they were French citizens who willingly worked with the Nazis. But in all of that, French culture kind of disappeared while the Germans occupied Paris, and they dropped their big banners, with the swastikas on it, and they took over the opera house and only showed Wagner, and museums and stuff. They were like shut down, and a lot of the cultural icons from France just kind of vanished during Nazi occupation. So, yeah.
I'm sorry. Michael was able to was it like the original story of Judex is not set the way it is presented in the story? Like he took a lot of liberties with that.
Complete and total liberties. Absolutely different story. Has nothing to do with the original.
Is Judex like a public domain character where you can do that kind of thing,
yes.
or is that?
Judex is full public domain. He's been public domain for a while. That's how DC was able to use him. That's how the film was remade. There's actually also been a book series written about him. There was a book series where he was it was almost like an avenging angel, not actually like supernatural angel, but like the character who would be like visit vengeance and justice upon people. There were I think 2 books, maybe 3 in the series. I did not read those when we did this. We mostly just kind of adapted the concept of this character. Because Odin liked the name Judex. That's where I think this came from. He liked justice. He liked the black and white silent film aesthetic.
Yeah.
He loves the Shadow. And when he was doing research for the Shadow, because the Shadow is going to enter public domain soon enough, he came across that link between Judex and the Shadow. And Judex is kind of like the Shadow, or was treated like the Shadow in the comics. So he's like, all right, let's do Judex while we wait for the Shadow to become public domain. And that's kind of where this idea came from. And we, Odin decided to set it during World War II, and he came up with the story about this policeman, Javert, who you see in the lower right of this cover.
He's in the first,
and Javert is he's working with the Nazis. He was a Vichy policeman, and he's willingly cooperating with the Nazis now. And so what Judex is doing is he's going out and he's passing judgment over the people in his city, be those the Nazis themselves or be those the Parisian residents who have decided to cooperate and abandon their city and their culture in favor of saving themselves or joining the enemy or what have you. So it's an interesting dynamic where the judgment isn't just let's fight the bad guys. It's who is the bad guy? Why are they bad guy, and what's the appropriate punishment? And that's really what drew me to the series. That, and of course, like the character's design is wicked cool. The idea of the
I'm sorry. Did Odin design it also? Like he designed the look and the mask and everything?
So he designed, let me show you like the original if you want. He came up with the idea that Judex needed like a carnival mask. He needed something to conceal his face. Like the Shadow has the red scarf and the slouch cap, right? He gave Judex, and since like the Shadow was kind of in the paper as Judex for a while, he kind of adapted it and was like, let's put a carnival mask on it. And underneath the eyes, you can see those, I don't know what to describe them, but this part here, right? These parts, they look like a grill. They're supposed, these parts right here. They're supposed to be the scoops, the scales of justice. So they're like the platforms that you place whatever is to be weighed upon on the scales of justice. And then the chain motif is, the chains that hold and weigh those platforms. So it's like the measure of your guilt. It's the weight of justice. It's that whole idea. And originally, though, there was I'm going to try and pop it open for you. Just give me 2 seconds here because I got to jump into the Google Drive.
Yeah, I want to say hi while you're doing that. Say hi to the people that popped in the chat. We got a Red Dress Press. Mr.
Hey,
Chris, what's going on,
Chris.
man? Thank you very much for stopping by. Yeah, yeah, thank you very much for subbing. I really appreciate it. And Chris, I'm always against the what's it called, the bullying that people. I don't avow the red dress. No, you don't have to wear a red dress. But yeah, good to see you, man. Good to have you here. And we also got Chauncey. What's up, man? Good to see you. Chauncey is afraid of coming on live streams and coming on YouTube and yeah, that's what I'm gonna say because
He'll be
he has,
fine. He should do
he
it.
has
He should do it. So here you go.
what's going
So,
on.
hey, John, what's up?
John's here and Odin's here. What's up, Odin? Hey man, I got through reading Unconditional Shove. Really good stuff, man. Really good stuff. Really good. And yeah, let's see what oh,
So this was the original kind of design that they came up with. If you
that's
can
dope.
see here in the middle, there's like a pedestal surrounded by
Okay.
that gold motif, right? And then it goes up into whatever's like up above his eyebrows, and those are supposed to be like the
Yeah,
stylized arms of the scale. And then the chains come down in that like almost
yeah.
V-shaped
I like that.
triangular pattern. And then these are like the platforms that you would weigh whatever you're weighing on the scale. So like that the scale was more embedded in the mask in this version.
Hmm.
But the problem with that is that I don't think the details carry very well with that, like the tiny little intricate details carry very well into other areas of art. Like if you were going to do a figure or if you were going to do anything smaller in the comic where you have his face that doesn't allow for all of that detail to be picked up. You can kind of I guess, quote unquote, cheat a little bit. And you'll see it in the pages that we have on the campaign
Yeah,
where you can kind of see texture from the carnival mask, but you can still see the X on his face. Trying to do that with like the cross over his eyes and the pedestal down or the thing down the middle of his face and then like the
yeah,
triangles and the weights and the scales, it just gets a little bit confusing. And to try and do that symbol when he's mid-ground or beyond in the background, it's hard to do that and it's hard to identify
yeah.
him. So an X is a far more identifiable characteristic. It's a symbol, an image, whatever. That's why we have X-Men, right? Like what did the
Exactly.
X stand for? But you put that on his face and okay, it's Judex. Yeah, it's the mask that has the X on it. We get it.
Yeah, it's great. I like the design and yeah, and I like also this pinup from Rich Ayala. He did an excellent job on
Oh
that.
yeah, dude. That one is absolutely
Yeah, that's
dope.
dope. He's got the texture. He's got the chains and everything just right. Yeah, good stuff, man.
So I reached out to Rich because Rich is one of my
Oh wait,
favorite
I thought I
artists.
was showing
Hanging,
this. This here it is.
he's one of my favorite artists hanging around this indie scene,
Yeah,
right? So I
man.
reached out to him. I was like, bruh, I need a really sick pinup to go with the campaign page, like the base tier, the little goodie that you get in addition to the book. We've got the collectible coin, which is really cool in the case because it also plays into the lore of the story. But I need a sick piece of art for everyone to get too. And he was like, I got you, fam. And he came up with this, and I showed him like
That's
the
dope.
pages, and I showed him this mask so you can see like the texture on it. If you look really carefully, the texture is
Yeah,
chains.
yeah,
Originally the
yeah,
texture wasn't changed, it was just kind of like a dotted pattern, but I was like, oh, let's go because we have the chain motif, let's play with the chain motif. Everyone loves chains. Look at Spawn's got the chains everywhere. It's one of his most iconic
yeah.
characteristics, so let's do chains around instead of just sort of dots to hold the texture. And he loved that. And he was like, yeah, so he saw the pages. He was like, I got to step my game and give you top tier. And this is just incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
He did, it's magnificent. Like he captured so much. Originally, I just wanted him to do like a Sugar Skull Day of the Dead style Judex mask. It was like, something small that we could do, maybe
Yeah.
like a sticker or something. And this guy comes out with like full size A4. Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's
And
dope.
I
It's got the
had to do
roses,
this in.
the bullets.
Yeah, and the barbed wire. So he threw some flavor
Yeah,
in there too, like with the
yeah,
candles, the
yeah,
roses, like you said. And he got the coin there in the lower left too. He got
yeah,
La
yeah.
Marion coin. So everything is just kind of going on right there. I really think it's perfect, and we slapped a really sick glow in the dark finish on that print because I
That's
am
awesome.
playing now with textures and finishes and more treatments. Like we've done metal, we've done embossing, soft touch UV, things like that on our covers that we did for Mavericks. We did wraparound, we did all of that. So now I'm playing with more different finishes, and I really wanted to play with glow in the dark. So we have this print
Nice.
that's glow in the dark, and one of our other covers is glow in the dark, and the skunk artwork, the
Is it this
Skunkworks
one?
art. No, that one is holofoil.
Oh, that's gonna
If you
look great
scroll
on
down to
holofoil.
that one is glow in the dark.
Oh, oh,
So
that's
what we
dope.
do, this one actually is a very special cover. It's personally, I love all my covers, right? That's why Egalite is the name
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the cover tier. They are equally great because the French motto is Liberté,
Liberté.
Égalité, Fraternité. So liberty, equality, brotherhood. And that's why the
Yeah.
names of the tiers are Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité. And Égalité is you get your choice of variant cover, and they are equally great. So whatever. But I
Sweet.
personally favor this one just because of the treatment. So it's a matte cover, right? But the
That's
Eiffel
dope.
Tower is a spot gloss treatment. So it's
Oh,
glossed and it's textured and shiny. And then
that's gonna pop out.
Judex,
Yeah.
all of the white areas on him are treated for glow in the dark.
Oh, that's
And
dope.
the darker areas, obviously, they're like the background. They're the
The
same sort
matte
of
picture.
matte
Yeah.
texture as the background. So when you look at this thing as it glows, some of that glow gets picked up by the Eiffel Tower because of the way that it's shiny and kind of reflective. And I just think it's really cool to have one texture, a second texture, the matte. For me, it's a real artistic composition because the physical element of comic books is really important to me. Digital is, you can read it digital. It's great to have digital format, but if you're going to be having like a physical book, do something sexy with it. Give someone like, oh damn, I'm happy I have that physical. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
the shit. I gotta have my physical book. So I really enjoy providing that for backers and customers.
Nice. Yeah, Odin in the chat. He says this is the other Odin that worked on this, not him, but the other. Yeah, Michael
Right,
Odin.
right, right. The Michael
Yeah,
Odin.
yes.
So then when Odin had his story put together, it was about the what happens between Judex and this French officer, this French policeman. I came in and we worked on the script together. We refined it. We refined the page layouts and the panel structure, staging, flow. We refined some of the dialogue. We really hammered on this comic nonstop. And it's really cool to work with him because the ideas flow very easily back and forth. There's very little ego in the way between the two of us. If he does something and it's not quite right, I'll say, no, that doesn't work. And he'll go, okay, how do we fix it? And I'll throw out an answer. And he goes, that's great. But what about? And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, let's consider. And then an answer is born out of it. In fact, there's an anecdote he likes to tell about this one time. We were polishing this one particular line, and I was like, I don't like that word. I don't like the way that the phonesthetics of the
Yeah,
line works, and that's like the auditory beauty of
yeah.
words.
It's got to
The
sound good
syllable
also. Yeah,
combination. Exactly, everything has a sound, so it's important in prose, especially since it's not
yeah,
poetry. You have to pay attention to phonesthetics so that the lines, the dialogue, they don't trip you up when you read. They're not awkward, and the consonant and syllable combinations don't sound like they're disjointed or stunted. Stunted dialogue is very unpleasant to read. And I'm kind of anal and obsessive compulsive about that kind of stuff, so I will pick at a line until it is satisfactory. So we were working on this one thing, and we were trying to come up with a different way of phrasing a certain thing. And we both came up with the same word combination like right after each other, because we were working live on the document, and we started typing the same thing. So it's just like, it shows that the two of us have a very similar mentality when it comes to structure and corrections, and the ease of which our minds kind of converge on something without like a personality difference getting in the way. To be fair, I'm very hard on him. Extremely hard on him. He did a script for me for the new Mavericks campaign that's coming up. It's called Mavericks Mobile Support Squad, and that's about a group of mechanics or combat engineers that service the Mavs in the field. They have like a big truck that goes around and like provides extra ammo, refueling, repairs, and everything. But it's about them in their truck amidst these giant robots, and I really liked that idea. But yeah, exactly. And like, what's it like to be in a vehicle, even though it's a big vehicle, it's a Striker, to see 33-foot tall robots, and the weapons that are being fired are things that are supposed to injure that thing. They're going to obliterate your truck, you know what I mean? So like, there's an additional level of terror, these walking tanks going around, and it's your job to fix these things when they go down. So anyway, that's a different story, but the point is, I made Odin do 9 different drafts of that book, because I was very particular about notes, and I'm very hard on him. I want the absolute best that he has, and he's got great stuff to put out. So of course I'm going to be like a very staunch filter for the stuff that comes out. And I'm really proud of this particular book. I think the dialogue really sings. For the most part, it's just, immaculate dialogue. I think the layouts are incredible, because I worked with the artist very carefully. Fabrizio and we redid several pages multiple times. There is a 2-page spread in the middle of the book around page 14, 15, and we must have done 3 different revisions of the spread, and it took us 2.5 months to get it right. And it was a back and forth and a back. It actually took us 3 full months to finish. And I had to call in other people and have them help me try and figure out, dialogue placement during this thing, because it's a very conceptual spread. I don't want to reveal too much about it, but it involves Judex and Javert and Judex's cloak. And how the cloak kind of unfolds across both the pages to show the scenes of Javert's life and what has led him to this point. And there's narration that goes through it, and the flow is very important to me, so that the eye naturally follows the progression of the word balloons, right? So like, it was getting it into like the scooped folds of the cape was also a little bit of a trick. And the cape texture itself, so that it felt like a moving cape and not just like a flat cape that was, plastered on the page. I've seen this actually done in some other books. It was hilarious, because I told Odin and Fabrizio this idea. I was like, what if we did this on this 2-page spread, this moment where we're supposed to see these incredibly intense fragments of Javert's life and how it all ties together to reveal his guilt. What if we did it like fragments of his past embedded in the cloak? And then like a couple weeks later, this issue of Spawn comes out, and on like the second page after the page turn, McFarlane has on the left side Spawn's cape, and it's got like memories in the cape. I'm like, you bastard! You stole my idea. Of course not. Of course, he was probably already working on it, but it was like, it was funny. It's that, what's it, is it Dunning-Kruger? I don't remember the name of the phenomenon, but it's when you start talking about something or become aware of something, and then you start seeing it out there in the world. It's kind of like that. But yeah, like, we put a lot of work into stuff like this. Now, Odin already had 4 pages, I think, done by the time I came on board. And so like I already had something to work with in the beginning, and it was just a matter of taking that and amplifying it and carrying it all the way through, and then adding some additional material, because you can't have a story end at like 18 pages. You need more, right? So we had to like take it a little farther. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
That's okay. What no, but yeah, I mean, no, I love it because like in the last few minutes that you've been talking, you've answered like four of my questions already. But yeah, like so apparently, Michael Odin was the one that came to you with the project first. He had these 4 pages already done, and then from there, you guys started
Yeah, he
hashing
had
out
the
the stuff.
character concept, he had the story all already set up. He had when he did his script, he didn't do it like a script. He did it
Yeah.
like prose. He wrote a short story basically. And
Okay.
he did that because the original artist on the project didn't want his hand held. He wanted to be free to interpret the story however he wanted on the
Oh,
page. So Odin just kind of wrote a story. And when Odin's working with Fabrizio, I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, I can see we're gonna have a little bit of problems here. You need to break this into script format so that you can work more directly and closely with the artist to talk about your layouts and talk about what you want it to look like on the page because it's very important to communicate the visual story element. And I
yeah.
can kind of tell that just giving him, hey, this is the prose that happens on this page doesn't really give him enough of a solid foundation for this is what I want to see on this page, which
Yeah.
then allows him to compose the panels the way he wants as long as you understand how many panels, a general idea of proportion for the page, and the staging in those panels. When I write, I could show you an example of the script if you want, but
Yeah.
when I write, it's what is there in a panel. You just describe what there is. Important details you can note down, but you don't want to overload the artist with just these infinite minutia, like
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
stands in the mid-ground, off center by 3 centimeters but between him and the panel of and this panel is a two shot with one spaced x amount of distance between the two where one is in the midground. You don't need that. The artist is
Yeah.
going to interpret from what is in the panel the best way to show that. And if you have a particular idea of where you want things staged, drop that. Just foreground, midground, background. In the background, there is this. So and so stands in the midground looking at so and so in the foreground. And it's very simple. And it's kind of like
And,
I interpreted Jim Zub's script writing format because it is incredibly simple and Zub is able to crank out work with his artists, and his artists find it incredibly simultaneously providing structure but also allowing for freedom. And so every time I hear Jim Zub talk about his scripts and see interviews with him and his artists, I'm like, that's probably the best way. It's not Alan Moore style script writing, more this modern streamlined script writing that isn't Marvel method. So I'm personally I prefer that type of writing. I usually like if I'm doing a new scene, I'll drop important scene information.
yeah. Yeah.
But you only have like 4 or 5 scenes in an issue, right? Like there's the scene here. We have Javert walking through the city, right? Like so we need to know what the city's going to look like. We have Judex at the Court of Miracles, so we need to know what the Court of Miracles is going to look like. We have Judex appear and shoot the Nazis, right? Then Judex talks to Javert. Like, I don't want to give you the whole structure of the comic, but these beats occur and you really have like a setting location, a scene for a couple of pages, and then you just shift to a new scene.
Yeah. Um, really quick, really quick, precise. When you're working with Michael Odin on this, is this are you guys like live streaming and working at the same time, or is this just bouncing ideas off of like a? You mentioned the Google Drive, so like you're typing and then he reads and types back. Because I read, I saw that on the campaign you have the first I think it's 12 pages for free on Google Comics on Global Comics, and I read it, and I have to say that I really really like the writing, which is expected from you and from Odin. From anybody in the chat who has read any of your comics before, like the level of writing and literature that you guys bring to the table is it's incredible. It's it's noticeable, and I really like how you guys formed this together. Which is my question as to like how is your creative process, because there's a very good, a very well mesh of ideas, and as you mentioned, the flow from panel to panel, and the pacing is really good. The images that are aligned with the text make for the images to be much more impactful, and there's an incredible amount of work to be done with that. And so I'm listening to everything that you're saying about your working process, but just to confirm, you guys do this just through emails per se. Is that correct?
So it spans multiple different means of communication. There are ongoing email threads between me and Odin and Fabrizio and the editor and Frequency Girl, all
Yeah.
linked together. Everyone is CC'd on everything. So it's almost like a group discussion where we,
Okay.
you know, we communicate that way. Then Odin and I message each other on Twitter. Then
Yeah.
Odin messages with Frequency Girl on Facebook because
Yeah.
she's an editor on the book, right? Like, so she has
Yeah. Yeah.
her own input, things that need to be handled. She's, also arranging schedule stuff, so like maintaining deadlines and everything. So he needs to talk to her, and he talks to her separately than when he talks to me. So he talks to me
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Twitter, and then Odin and I, when we're working, he calls me every day, or I call him, or whatever. Like, we speak almost every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just put it on speaker on my phone because we call each other. We don't really StreamYard. And I just leave him there and we work. And sometimes we'll work for like 2-3 hours at a time. And then we'll both go off and do our own tasks. And then we come back together the next day with whatever it is we've put together.
Yeah,
And we'll
because
do
it's
that.
very noticeable. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and,
Go
and
ahead. Sorry. Sorry.
frequently our conversations will get sidetracked because as is evident, I like to talk.
You don't say. You don't say. No, that's awesome. No, that's great, and you can definitely see it. I invite everybody in the chat to please check out those free pages on Global Comics. It'll completely hook you in. I was also curious about that. Like, you mentioned scenes, and you mentioned that there's like maybe 5 or 4 scenes in one issue. And because the what I read in the first few pages, it reads like the first scene of this story. Is that correct? It,
Yeah,
Cause my
yeah,
question is
absolutely.
like, how do you
So
how do you know how do you know how much to give away without giving too much? Is one scene about right?
I wish I could break it down as a science, but
Okay.
some of this is just writing by your gut. You know what I
Yeah, yeah,
mean? And imagining in your head. And this is also why I am a much slower writer than some of my contemporaries. Odin
yeah,
can
yeah.
write a script in an afternoon. It takes me several weeks to put out a version of my script. This is one of the other reasons that like Odin will put out his script and I'll be like, all right, well, next draft, again, next draft, refine to get it to that
Yeah,
point. But I'm in my mind composing pages. And
yeah,
with the
yeah,
composition of pages, I have to then properly and clearly and concisely articulate those panel compositions to the artist. And when we get it to the point that he's interpreting what I'm saying and it's appearing on the page in a way that I conceived of it, but also with the artist's input and their own addition to the panels that enhance what I've envisioned, then I know we've hit that point of collaboration where we can really start cranking. And only rarely is it going to be a no, this layout doesn't quite work, and this is why. Fabrizio and
right.
I, like, we have when it was months back. I think it was in March or April. Yeah, it was one of the it was March or April. We were getting ready for the renters to come in May. And there was this one page that we were doing, and I had to have him fix this one panel in the lower left corner and one panel across the middle and move the
Yeah,
staging from one side to the other the primary character from one side to the other, so that it maintained the Z shape on the page, or the flow. You know what I mean? Because every page reads like a Z. You read left to right, then top to bottom. And then when I talked to him about it, I was like, okay, and this is why I think we need to do it this way. And he was like, oh, okay, I totally get that. And then the next 2 or 3 pages that he turned in, he was like on the ball. I was like, okay, you nailed position perfectly. We went back and forth about how many pages to put up as a teaser. We tried different combinations until we found a good balance of context and intrigue. I mean, she sometimes writes better than I do, right?
Yeah. Sounds right. Yeah, good.
Generally, when you do a comic, you can be, with the first act, you introduce different elements of storytelling that build the tension to a point where you have that big, not very big. You have a catharsis at the beginning of the first act, bringing you into the second, which is another bit of storytelling, right? Yeah. And that brings you to the major, the second catharsis, the beginning of the third act, which brings you to the major catharsis at the end, and then the denouement, right? Like the big climax. So yeah, you're climaxing 3 times in a story if you're doing it right. But generally, you can give in a comic book that's 30 pages, you can give away about a third of it without having to worry too much about revealing things, because your big reveals happen in the middle of the second act and the climax of the third act. Those are like the real main inflection points of the story, where if you give away the ending, well, that sucks. And if you give away that build-up climax to the third act, well, that sucks. But you can give plenty of storytelling in the first act, which establishes the natural world. It establishes the call to adventure. The hero rejects the call to adventure if this is the hero's journey, right? Then, he has no choice. He has to go on the adventure, and he encounters his mentor and some friends, and then they get to their first major battle. You cut it at the beginning of the first major battle because you're stoking that excitement. Now you know who the characters are, the normal world, the situation that engenders the need to go on this adventure. You introduce their allies. And this is the kind of stuff you see in an anime intro or a movie trailer, right? Like you get the sense of adventure that builds up to that. And that's why you can give away a third of your story without having to worry that you're ruining anything. If anything, you're getting the audience jazzed to go read the rest of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I also have to give you props, mad kudos. Everybody's applauding the nerdness that lies within Neff. Yeah, Neff is awesome. He's a force of nature. Definitely, I agree, because you have.
Oh, you're making me blush.
By hearing what you're saying and by reading these pages, you have the whole science. You have the whole science of comic making down to a science. But I wanted to ask you about these pages, these panels. For example, here we're looking at the scene of Paris. I'm assuming it's the 1940s. How much research goes into making sure that this looks just like it did back then? Is this something that
so that's Odin. That's
Michael Odin.
All. That's, for the most part, that's Odin, because I'm a literature nerd. Odin is a history nerd.
It's a history nerd.
And so historical details are very important for him. So there are elements of the script that are particular details that he's calling out that need to be there. Right? And then
the January 21 date that he put at the beginning also is a historical date also.
Right. It's the anniversary of the deposition of the tyrant Louis.
Yeah, he got beheaded that day. Yeah.
Right, which is why the widow, Judex's pistol, is made from the blade of the guillotine. So it all ties back together. It's the blade of the guillotine that killed off the tyrants. So can I show you the first page of this? There's a reason the first page of the comic is not on the campaign, and it's because we would get in absolute freaking trouble, but it doesn't really matter. that we would get in absolute freaking trouble, because we're already fully shadow banned on the campaign on the website. Right. So why not just show you I think this is only high res TIFFs. So let me see if I can open that.
I also had a question about these.
Where are the letter files? Oh, there it is. Teaser files. Okay. Interior front cover. There it is.
What's up, Hojo? Good to have you in the chat. What's up, D-Wag? What's up, man? Thank you very much for stopping by.
So let me share this with you. Okay. You see that? Okay.
Yeah.
So Nazi-occupied Paris, January 21st, 1941, right? Do you hear it too, I wonder, the ragged gasp of the city in decay, too weak to mourn the cruel twist of fate that on this night, an anniversary to mark the death of tyranny, Paris finds itself yoked to a yet more wicked regime. Yeah, and we couldn't put that on the front main page because there's a giant swastika in the middle of it. Yeah. But, you can see we're reading straight down the page, and then we read diagonally to the right-hand side where we get the page turn, right? So position of the text box is important, but whatever.
That's dope.
But so you can see the date is important, right?
Yeah.
You get the understanding that it is a cruel irony that the Nazis have succeeded their occupation of Paris, in the days shortly following the death of Louis. And the importance is that there is now a new fascism that has replaced a monarchy.
Yeah, definitely, man. I like that parallel thing that he's doing with that. It's really intriguing, and I mean, you expect it from Odin, because he's, as everybody is mentioning in the chat, he's a history buff, and because of that aspect of.
So this is all him too. This was all his decision to include in the Court of Miracles, which is Judex's special hideout, right? It's his bat cave. Yeah. It's his magical place where he has managed to collect and secure relics from all over Paris. So here you've got the Sword of D'Artagnan, you've got the letters to what's-her-name, you've got the Iron Mask from the Man in the Iron Mask, and you have the music box from Phantom, right? And so these are these elements, and when we redid the dialogue, I was like, look, let's put parallelism between these bits of dialogue. It weeps for the fatal blow you have dealt it with the sword, right? But if Paris is to die from her wounds, it will be no meek diminuendo, and it will be a final surge upon the stage. The music, the rising crescendo. So like the idea of trying to artfully put those in there to match the visual representation is another part of storytelling, as part of that visual storytelling. So Odin decided to put all of those in there. The globe is just kind of, it's not specific in its representation, but later in the story, when he gets back to the Court of Miracles, and this was the part that we had to add to kind of pad out the rest of the bit, we added a relic called the Apocalypse Tapestry. And what that is, it's a bunch of scenes of really weird biblical events, and they're gigantic. You can look it up on the internet. They're huge. And so I was like, oh, okay, this actually does fit in. It's French. It went through France. So let's have Judex have got that and put it in his Court of Miracles. And then there is a very important chessboard down there. And then there is a map called the Cassini map, which is the first proper representation of topography and cartography of France, and specifically the city of Paris with the streets and everything. But it's from way back when, before some of the monuments and important landmarks were there, so we had to have those drawn in by Judex on the map. And all of those things feed into his motif, which is like the French culture, but they also serve a purpose. When he looks at the Apocalypse Tapestry, I have him interpreting signs of the future. When he looks at the chessboard, he's developing strategy. He actually picks up a piece, the White Knight, and he places it upon the Cassini map, which is where he's got to go next, you know? So
Yeah.
like there's all of these things feed together to cooperate in the mythos that is the, you know, is Judex.
Yeah, that's dope. Is it
Thanks, Adam.
similar to what you have in the map here on the screen?
Yes, it is similar to that. That's actually as a map from the 18th century. Our map is from the 17th century, I believe, or possibly even earlier. You know what? Elliot, you're my brother. Let me see if I can show you the topography of that map, just because you know. Let me see if I can grab it for you.
Man, thanks. What's going on, Adam?
JPEGs.
Thank you for stopping by, Adam.
Because it's the other thing about Fabrizio is he's very precise. He will look at architecture. He will look at a picture, an image, anything. Like when I showed him the Cassini map, and he can reproduce what he's looking at very accurately. And it's quite the feat. Like when he does the Arc de Triomphe at the end, it's quite amazing.
I heard that Michael Odom found him. I think it was on the Art Station. I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was Art Station.
Yeah, good, excellent talent, beautiful artwork, man. I'm really digging this artwork, and I'm assuming that this is going to be permanently black and white. There's no ideas of getting this colored.
Yeah, there's no color that's going on this. This is all going to be black and white.
Sweet.
I'm trying to find this thing.
It fits the character a lot more.
Here it is. Okay, hopefully this TIFF is yes. There we go. Okay, let me share this screen. Nobody has seen this page yet. You are the first. This is a big reveal, exclusive reveal for you.
Exclusive. Oh, check it out, guys. I hope you guys are excited.
So you guys don't have the dialogue, so clearly you don't, get the total story. But you see, he picks up the white knight off the chessboard, and that's the Cassini map. And you see, he's drawn in the opera. He's drawn in. He's denoted Notre Dame. He's drawn in the Eiffel Tower.
That's crazy.
And Judex has actually added these to his map, and he places the White Knight by Notre Dame because that's where the next issue is going to take place. So as you can see, and there's Arc de Triomphe, and you can see the Eiffel Tower in the background. Now I can't show you the next page because it's a great reverse shot of the arc, but look at that. Like, look at what Fabrizio's able to do here.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's beautiful. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Awesome work.
It's really, in my opinion, it's really stunning that he can bring out that level of detail just by looking at something and then just reproduce it.
Yeah, that's why I hate digital. I can't zoom in on the page. Like I'm drawing something, I can't zoom in. But yeah, that's awesome. That's beautiful. Excellent.
Look this right here, right? Like alone the detail isn't very precise, right? But it's like those dots. They're like Bende dots, right? The color dots, or like who's that artist that paints in dots? Is it Matisse? I don't know. And then you zoom out, and it's an entire landscape, right? And I love that.
That's awesome, man. Good work. Excellent artist. And this is going to be an ongoing series?
Yes.
Nice. And what are you guys going to do when the shadow becomes public domain? I'm assuming you're going to be like in the Judex issue 10, and then are you guys going to like cross them over?
So I think Odin wants to do a shadow series all on Surratt. Thank you. I know Frequency Girl knows this stuff. That's why she's got the memory of an elephant. It's fantastic. Nice. I just kind of can reference or know the thing that I'm talking about, but I don't remember what it's called. I don't remember where it's from, and half the time I cite it incorrectly. But if once the shadow becomes public domain, I think Odin just wants to write a shadow series. I'm not sure if we have plans to do any crossovers with Judex, but as you see on the campaign, there is a Black Terror crossover because Black Terror was active back during World War II, and then Vaughn's Terror in the Trenches takes place more modern day, but he was around fighting Nazis in World War II. So we did a crossover with him there, where he goes to stop Victor von Blood and his coven of sexy vampire chicks who resurrect inside of Paris, and Judex and Black Terror need to team up to take them down, and it's really kind of neat. And then we were working on a crossover with Black Fury, Miss Fury, and we're hoping to get that done by the time the Kickstarter campaign comes around. We'll see. But the idea of like doing little crossovers with other public domain characters really appeals to me, because it's fun, like it's a fun thing to do, to use all these other public domain characters. Oh yeah, I recognize them, or oh, that's a really cool take on that character. And because of that series Masks, where you saw all of them on a super team together, I think that that's very much doable, where we could do like single crossovers. And if we wanted to, we could, I guess, pursue a series based off of the interpretation that we have of that character when we bring them into the Judex setting. So it's entirely possible that Odin wants to do a Shadow crossover that kicks off a Shadow series.
Well, that'd be awesome. And then I'm assuming all of this is going to be attached to that in some fashion also, because all
to what?
Loves that stuff also. To the Shadow.
Aldous, yeah, Aldous would love. Aldous needs it done very precisely, I'm certain, because Aldous really knows the lore of the Shadow. He really, I think, more than anybody knows the Shadow. So if we're going to be drawing on any resources, I do not want to be doing the Shadow injustice, which means I'm going to be conferring with him. But Odin knows the Shadow pretty darn well. So I think if we do tackle a public domain character like that, we can't take too much liberty. We took a ton of liberty with Judex. You know what I mean? He's a 1916 silent film character who fights a banker. We have a cultural defender of France fighting Nazis. It's entirely different. We can't do that to the Shadow. We have to stick closer to the source material.
Sweet.
But Hojo's right. They have a lot of potential.
Yeah, this is one of many that I've seen, because also Mark Polton, he brought back the Black Owl.
Yeah.
And it's good stuff. Good stuff. And I asked him one time, so that technically means that I could do my own take on that character also, and that's and apparently that's how it works.
Absolutely. The one thing that you can't do is use a name under copyright or trademark.
Okay.
Or use character designs and character histories previously published by someone else under copyright. So you could do your own version of Judex, but he couldn't be fighting Nazis during World War II wearing a mask that has a X chains on the front, wielding the widow. You know what I mean? Like that. That's too close to the IP that we've put out, so you'd have to do a different take. When we were looking at doing Miss Fury, Dynamite did the re-release of a Miss Fury story with Billy Tucci not too long ago. So they still have the name Miss Fury under copyright, which means that if we do a Miss Fury story, we would have to call her something else. We can't even use the name because of how it's been published with that as the title.
Oh, that's crazy. That's a lot of like walking on eggshells type thing. We got to be really precise with what you do, and crazy stuff.
But that's why entertainment lawyers exist, and people that you can confer with, and there's a database that you can search. It was actually Frequency Girl, because she's awesome, that looked into that and found like we can't use that name. She found the copyright and trademark. That's
crazy. Awesome stuff, man. Yeah, I'm really excited for the book. I read as I mentioned, I read the pages on Global Comics. I'm gonna definitely be back in this, and it sounds really good. Sounds really good, and I can't wait for more issues of this, because the accuracy is there, the story is there, the writing is there, the art is definitely there. Really good stuff. And,
I'm really proud of this. I think we put a really good foot forward. We do have plans for this series. We do. It is artistic. It's artful. Like it's adept. All of those adjectives describe the way we're working on the series. And I think Odin and I have a really great partnership developing this IP and telling a story about this public domain character that's fresh and unique. It really is a unique take.
Yeah, yeah, I dig it. Yeah. Lemurian coin. No, is there? I'm assuming there's historical significance to the coin also.
Yes, so Lemurion is the topless woman who is the symbol of the French Revolution. There's a very famous painting of her holding a flag of France, and she's, of course, topless from the waist up because the titties are awesome, I guess. But she's like the symbol of liberation. And she was on the French franc for a while. She wears this like laurel cap. And Judex uses this French franc, which was released around the time that Louis was king. And it was used as the symbol of liberation by Les Sans-Culottes, who were like the rebels at the time. And on the back of this coin, and we have the coin on this campaign because we did a replica that we designed. It was funny because the company that designed it was like, we can't do the full design that you've provided. It is too accurate down to the size and gram weight. It could be used as counterfeit currency. And we were like, okay, fine. But on the back of that is the blind lady of justice holding the scales. And on the front it says, liberté, égalité, fraternité. You flip it over and it says justice underneath. And her standing there holding the scales. So that's like Judex's special calling card. If you've had an encounter with him and he has let you live, it's because he is going to use you in his plan to liberate France as an ally, as an informant, or in some way he has inspired you. Kind of like, how V for Vendetta has people wearing the mask. That's his calling card. So people who have this Lemurion are members of the resistance. They are members of the Brotherhood, the Fellowship. They are all on Judex's team, which is why we gave it away on the basic Liberté tier, because it's like, okay, now you got the coin, you on our team, right? Like you're along for the ride. You're gonna be one of Judex's fans.
Yeah, actually, and I am glad that you mentioned that because I also get a lot of V for Vendetta vibes in the story. Also, there's a lot of
Odin likes to tap the shadow.
Yeah,
he loves, but you said Zorro, and I think Zorro's a really good description because Zorro kind of meets both of these characters and also adds in the cultural element on top of it. V is very much about breaking free from an authoritarian culture that has taken control of society and told the people what to think and how to behave and controls their life. And the people have become weak and subservient and given up. And V is there to tell them that it doesn't have to be that way. You can rise up and overthrow these folks. And that's the part of that character that I tap into when I look at Judex. And I'm like, that's what this is about. This is about rebelling against an authoritarian regime and taking back your culture. This is about breaking free from the people who want to control your society. Odin taps the shadow very much because the shadow is about judgment. He's about punishing the wicked. He's got the laugh, he's got the guns, he's got the powers. And that's definitely a part of the Judex character, but there's that other dynamic that I think comes into it to make it, have the impact that it does.
Sweet. And Judex doesn't have any superpowers, I think, right?
He has magic powers. So Judex is bullshit. His powers are just, they come from the relics that he has. So Lemurion, right? So Lemurion on the pistol here, right? The Widow, made from the blade of the guillotine. This gun is a peacemaker. It's a Colt peacemaker design, right? With the single, the barrel doesn't come out. It doesn't have a side hinge like a modern 38 357 revolver. You have to load the bullets one at a time in this, or unload them one at a time. It's a cowboy gun. It's a peacemaker from like the West. But that's why we thought the design was very appropriate. It's a peacemaker, right? So reloading this thing after 6 shots on the battlefield would be a huge pain in the ass. Only cowboys could do that, and only when they were fighting other cowboys. It's not fair for you to have to when you're fighting Nazis with automatic weapons. So the cool thing about the Widow is that it passes judgment on the wicked and has as many bullets as it needs to render that verdict. It doesn't have to be reloaded until this particular case has been resolved, right? So like with Javert, Judex is going out to judge him. If there's 100 Nazis in the way, this gun will fire 100 times and kill them all without having to be reloaded. But if there is an innocent upon whom the Widow is drawn, and they are not guilty, their soul is not heavy with the burden of guilt, it won't fire because there's no bullet there for them. So it's bullshit. It's whatever, like, you get it? Like, we can have it do magical things because it ties into the elements of the story. The mask, right? The mask has hypnotic powers. So as you see when he's doing the coin trick, right? He like rotates the coin in his hands. It's right here. Yeah. They all kind of fall into a trance, and if you scroll down just a tiny bit, you can see we have a scroll back up. It's the panel right below the coins. Right there. Stop. You see his eye inside the mask. Like, it's like they're looking into that eye. They're meeting his gaze and they're becoming entranced. And then he has them under his spell because the mask allows him to contain their consciousness and manipulate what they see. So later, when he presides over the verdict that he gives Javert, the mask peers into Javert's soul, and Javert has a hallucination of his life, which is shown in the Cape of Midnight in that 2-page spread. So, like, the mask has that power to control minds and mesmerize and have you hallucinating stuff. And then the cloak itself allows him to step through shadows and become insubstantial. So yeah, he's got superpowers, but they're all bullshit. They're all whatever we want them to be, and they're justified by whatever relic he happens to have on him. And I will just pull cultural French relics out of my ass and give him more superpowers when I need them.
Oh, such lazy writing.
Yeah, it is. It's great. It's great. Like if we ever need him to have like invulnerability, we'll give him the breastplate of Charlemagne. You know what I mean? Like, just pull that out of my butt. Yeah, of course. It's a cultural relic of France, and of course its power is like the shield of faith. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's awesome. I dig that. Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. That's cool that you're bringing in that cultural aspect to it also.
Yeah, we have to. That's the motif by which we get to justify whatever the hell he's doing. And the great thing is, we can have him do whatever the hell we want, but we have to justify it within the story. The nice thing is, we have a vehicle. We have a motif and a vehicle by which to justify it that is very easy to access, and we will never violate the mythology, because the mythology is whatever's in Paris. Whatever's important to Paris, whatever's linked in any way culturally to France and Paris, and anything that we need, we can find some sort of cultural representation for that. And, it makes sense. No one's going to question it, of course.
Is there going to be, like, things that may be off limits? Like, for example, like, would you guys, or is it in the cards to, like, mess around with, like, things from Napoleon?
I don't think anything is off limits if Odin thinks that it would be appropriate and okay to use, because like I said, Odin is the history filter the way I'm the literary filter. So if I go, hey, can we play with this thing? And Odin's like, nah, it wouldn't be there at that time because, according to history, this thing was on display in Luxembourg and wouldn't be in France at that time. We have no idea where, but something like the Apocalypse Tapestry is not off limits because it was in France and there is no historical record beyond that puts it somewhere else at the time. So we can go, oh yeah, it was totally in France. Of course. So, but if something, that Napoleon had something to do with that I wanted to play with, because I was trying to justify Judex suddenly having a new magical power. And Odin was like, yeah, I don't think that's culturally appropriate. That's it, right? Like, because he's the filter for the historical element. I'm not going to argue with him. We'll find something else.
That's awesome. You got that human encyclopedia like that. That's awesome. I dig that. Good stuff, man. So guys, please back this today. This is awesome. This is a really good book, and it's a continuing series. So we're going to get a lot more from this in
And
the
the
future.
first
And
story, the first issue is all self-contained, right? Like you have the
that's
story of
yeah.
Judex and Javert, and that resolves itself in the first issue. Then you have like a little bit of a tease of what's coming down the road for Judex. We introduce the antagonist, and you can see him at the bottom of the campaign. You can see him in the stickers that Shay did and the trading cards that were just unlocked, and that's Ritter von Wotan, and he is an occult hunter who works for Himmler. There was a special Nazi regiment that hunted down occult relics for Hitler during World War II. And so this guy is right there. If you zoom in on the
On this
scroll
one,
back,
huh?
yeah, right there. Yeah, that one, right. You scroll in on that. If you zoom in on that, you can see it pretty well.
Can I? I can do that.
So he's a pretty badass character. He's got like scratch marks on his face, and he uses a sword, and he's a German fencer. He has a big clawed gauntlet. The design originally, Odin wanted to do more of like an Otto Skorzeny design. Otto Skorzeny is like this legendary Nazi captain who survived World War II and was a real badass, and like then became sort of a mercenary and then worked for Israel, which is kind of like a major reversal, right? It's like, okay,
Yeah,
now you're working
definitely.
for the other side. But Skorzeny's just like this legendary fighter. So he wanted to like kind of do that, but he was a little dumpy. He had a weird handlebar mustache, and I was like, let's make him look like Savannah from Shazam, from the most recent Shazam movie. You know, like the villain with the weird eye and the scar on his face. Yeah, he looks cool. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of like morphed into that kind of, you know, ominous, as you well know, bald, scarred, with a weird relic for an eye and like a wicked grin. It's pretty dope. So then we introduce him at the end of the issue and what like he's looking for. And the next issue, since they're kind of serialized, they don't happen completely like they don't need to happen 100% sequentially. You don't need to read them all to be able to get the story. They unfold each one as a chapter in and of themselves, and then there's like a little bit more leading you to the next chapter.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool that you can do that kind of sequential series story like that. Because yeah, you can have new backers jump into the story late in the game and still find it entertaining, and that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
we'll
what
always
that's the one
provide
thing that
catch
I
up.
liked about. Yeah, that's the one thing that I liked about the King Cryptid series, because each story it's its own thing, and there's a certain continuity to it, no, but it's loose. No, you don't have to like necessarily read everything in order, and that's
And
good.
as you
That's
see,
awesome
we
stuff.
got the cover price down on this pretty far. There's that one tier that is $10, and you get the comic plus free shipping. So you pay $10 and the comic shows up at your door. You don't have to pay any other, you know, anything, unless it's only in the continental US. So you don't have to worry about VAT. But that means that like we did get the printing cost per issue down pretty low, which
Yeah,
means
that's dope.
it's
Yeah,
accessible, right? So it's going to be more widely available because it's less expensive for us to print and provide, which means that catch-up tiers are much more likely, because when we do a print run, we don't get hit with like $6,000, overall
yeah,
cost to print issues. And if we bring those to stores, we can, price them reasonably. You, you
yeah,
don't you don't really sell $25 graphic novels that are 48 pages in stores. It doesn't work. You don't have a market for it. It's not financially attractive to consumers. No one's going to buy a $25 48-page comic if you put it on a comic stand in a store. They'll
exactly.
buy floppies, or they'll buy trades that are like 120 pages for $15. So pricing is very important. So like we had to address that part of it to make this comic accessible so that we could provide catch-up tiers and go to stores with it.
Nice. Yeah, Hojo sums it up
Yeah.
perfectly. When you
Yeah, he
pair
gets
a
it.
marketing genius with a capable writer, this is why. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, that's awesome stuff, man. I'm excited for this. I can't wait to jump into the world of Judex. Judex.
Yeah, it's gonna be
That
fun.
name just flows off the tongue. Also, huh? That's dope. I like that.
And
And
as someone
yeah,
pointed out that
yeah.
it's like they were breaking it like Jude X, and I
Yeah.
realized I was like, holy shit. Jude is Jude. Judah is
Mhm.
the German word for Jew. So it's like Judah X, like the X-Men, right? Like any
Nice.
Jew. Like, and so I was like, oh, that's kind of dope. I
Yeah.
might want to play with that. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be dope. Yeah. Get on that. Yeah, that's awesome stuff, man. And
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know if
yeah. Grey
anybody.
Wolf. Grey Wolf knows who Scorzani is. Guy is a
Yeah.
legend.
After he was deposed and locked up in the monastery of Northern Italy. That's correct. Yeah. Good stuff. Awesome stuff, man. Are there if this I don't know if anybody has any other questions in the chat. I've gone through all my questions, and I'm yeah really excited. Learned a lot about the book, and yeah, I'm really excited. Looking forward to the comic. Yeah, yeah, good stuff, man. And yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add, Neff, before
Yeah,
we
you should get
close
the
down a
mask.
little bit? Wait, hold on. Let's do this. Just give me a second. Just give me a second.
You
Yeah.
should get the mask.
Get the back.
The mask is fucking cool. Look how cool this thing is, right? Don't you want to
Yeah,
be
that's dope.
Judex? Yeah, be
Yeah, beat
Judex.
you that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, this is on the. You can get the mask on the campaign.
And it comes with the Liberté tier, and then the
Yeah,
option
it is
to
right there.
upgrade to the Fraternité tier for half price.
Yeah, and then you got the full Jude X tier, which is that looks cool too. You got the cape, the
Which is
gun, and
crazy. Yeah, it's the mask and the gun comes in its display case, and you can wall mount it with a bracket, and then a cape. It's a custom cape that Frequency Girl is going to make. So the more
that's
I
awesome.
sell, the more I make her have to make custom pattern capes. And then
That's
we
awesome.
found the hat. I didn't want to put the hat on the campaign because I didn't know if I could do it. But this is a triple XL hat, so it's able to handle the circumference of a head plus the additional width of the mask. So now you get the hat
Oh wow,
too. All you need is a pinstripe suit, and you're ready to go.
nice. Yeah, and I got a big head also. I got a size 8. For people that wear the caps, the size 8. And Grey Wolf says it's amazing how Scorzani was able to land and take off with Feisler Storch during the raid to rescue Mussolini. Huh? That's dope. That sounds like a story in itself. Yeah, yeah, good stuff. And yeah, so yeah, I think we're done.
Yeah.
Unless there's anything else you'd like to say, Neff. But
We do have another series coming out before Mavericks comes out. That is The Field. He's a bionic Captain America set during like the days of the Afghan war. The war in Afghanistan
yeah,
towards
yeah,
the end. And that's pretty exciting. Odin, it's very important for Odin because we teamed up on that too. He and I are doing a lot of stuff together now because the
oh, that's
writing
awesome.
partnership is really, really fantastic. It's
It
important
sounds
for
like
Odin
it.
because Odin's a veteran. So like that story is very close to his heart. There's a lot of what he wants to say about being in the armed services, in the armed forces, baked into that. But it's also a really cool adventure with a very neat, twisty plot that has some espionage elements, and it's its own universe too, right? Like, so it doesn't
Yeah, yeah.
take place concurrently with Judex or within the same setting. We're not doing an interconnected universe like that. And then we possibly have one more story, but I think I'm focusing predominantly on Mavericks at this point. So that'll be coming out later next year, hopefully in the late summer, early fall of
Yeah, I've been
2024.
seeing the teasers of the art, man. Beautiful art. Oh, I
Yeah,
can't wait for it.
Hector's a
Yeah,
beast. He is an absolute force of
yeah.
nature when it comes to that art. We're working on
Well, like,
pages. He's just so his whole process is nuts, man. He does everything by hand traditionally. Then
that's
he
cool.
does an ink wash, a wash to get the gray tones. So he's painting. Then he scans that and does digital color.
Crazy, awesome stuff, man. This stuff looks like pictures. Like he's got a tremendous dominion
Texture.
over lighting and texture. Like,
Yeah,
crazy
yeah.
stuff.
Honestly, the texture
did
and color is and pitting and everything, like that texture and color
Yeah.
is really what makes his art explode off the page.
Yeah, awesome stuff, man. That's an excellent find. Yeah, great stuff, man. And and Hojo says he's excited for the field also because he's a veteran himself, and what he has
Yeah.
seen so far is dope. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Awesome stuff, man. I can't wait. I'm gonna have to check that out also, and thank you guys thank you for the veterans for all your services, for your service to the country.
Definitely.
And
It's important to tell a authentic story. And I couldn't really tell that because I'm not a veteran, but Odin is. But the themes that we hit are universally human. And they mean even more when you add in that additional element of service to a country, sacrifice for freedom, right? And sacrifice for a way of life. Willing to put yourself to the hazard to protect something significant and tangible. And of course, the field doesn't run.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, definitely. It's something that also that the country needs right now. I know there's a lot of people that need to appreciate the armed forces and everything that they do for stability.
The field doesn't retreat. That's the saying. The field doesn't retreat. It comes from when you look at soldiers in the military, they have the flag what appears to be backwards on a lot of their stuff, on the patches, on their rifles and everything. And I've always been curious about why that is. And Odin goes, "Oh, it's because the stars, the blue square with the stars faces forward, because the field doesn't retreat." That's called the field. That area is called the field. The 50 stars, you point that towards the enemy, and the field doesn't retreat. And I was like, well, there's your fucking tagline. That's it right there. That's the tagline for the series.
That's dope. The field doesn't retreat. That's dope.
Right.
I like that symbolism. That's awesome. Awesome stuff, man. Man, I envy your writing abilities. Awesome stuff.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome stuff, man. And so that wraps it up for this week's the morning show. And I'll catch you guys next week with another guest. I'll be here, next week on the 23rd, and I'll be posting some more videos this week of my art. I've been doing sketch cards of the turtles, which have gone out, and
dude, that Raphael looks sick. That one you did of Raphael looks so good.
Thanks, man. I'd love to show them off, but I've already sent them out, and I did all four of them. So I'm going to post the Leonardo one that I did tomorrow, just knocking out commissions, and I finished the writing on my story, so I'll send that off to the editor and see what happens. So thank you very much, everybody. Please don't forget to like the show, sub to the channel, and please follow my guest Neff. He's a prolific writer. Pick up Mavericks. Mavericks is a great story, and please be sure to follow him and the rest of his comics. And they sound really, really good. And the first few pages on Global Comics that I read of Judex are excellent. So I'm expecting the rest to be just as great. And my sister needs one of those sketch cards, but I don't have any more with me. And so that's it. Thank you very much, everybody in the chat. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and thank you to my guest Neff. I really appreciate it. It has been a tremendous honor having you here. Hopefully, I can get you back on again for whenever Mavericks comes out, or for whenever any project comes out. I'll be happy to kick it with you. And that'll be it. Without any further ado, I will see you guys later. Have a good day. And I'm out.